I hand over to Mary and Bex to cover our subject this morning, I just wanted, if we could go on to the next slide, John, just wanted to say a little bit about universal personalised care. As mentioned, we are looking at this throughout the series of webinars and how the ESTHER care philosophy helps to deliver universal personalised care. And as mentioned, our specific subject today is enabling choice. So we are going to look at some examples of how choices have been supported and enabled even during the lockdown restrictions. So just to look at what we mean by enabling choice, what we mean is that there is a choice of providers and services that better meet people's needs, and that people are aware of their choices, including their legal rights, and that there are regular reviews built in to make sure that the choices are delivering what people want in their lives. So do bear that in mind. That is the kind of the backdrop and one of the reasons we're exploring this subject today. Okay, next slide, please. Well, it gives me great pleasure now to hand over to Mary, Chris and Bex Maguire. They will say a little bit about themselves, and you'll get a sense of the organisation that they're representing. This morning you'll see in our slides that we're featuring the Phoenix Support organisation logo, and that's because we are working in co-production. Okay, next slide. Right, so Mary and Bex, would you like to share with everyone what does this photograph represent? What have you been doing in terms of your ESTHER ambassador training?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that the situation of COVID-19 has actually been very advantageous to Bex and I.
It has.
Because it immediately threw us into a situation where we had to rethink how we were going to deliver this philosophy. And it put us really in good stead, didn't it, by the preparation we'd done. And then that all went out the window and we just regrouped and said we still want to carry on getting this philosophy out despite the fact of lockdown. So because our organisations obviously had made it very safe for people were contained within their own bubbles as such, which of course includes staff coming into our supported living accommodations. We, with the PPE that has been provided to us, have managed to go out and deliver this philosophy to smaller groups than we anticipated, whilst they're in the relaxed environment of their own gardens and other outside areas. And in fact, delivering it outside, I think, opened up discussion more. We've been blessed with good weather, as we know, although Bex and I had delivered some in the pouring rain under an umbrella with soaking wet paper. But nonetheless, it's been fantastic. And I think, would you say the response has been good?
I would say, yes, very good.
So we have actually managed to now gather together 36 more ESTHER ambassadors, which are consisting of some people that have got the most wonderful ideas. Through listening to their experiences, we're now going to be supporting the staff who support them to put these ideas into practice, because these ideas and these which have sprung from experiences has established itself what matters most to them in their support and what will help improve their lives. And certainly these will all be enabling choice
definitely
situations. And to be honest with you, I think we've both had our awareness, enlightened, because we're all learning all the time from one another. Every time we experience something different, be it going into a hospital, whether or not that's a psychiatric unit or a physical reason for going into the hospital. And Bex, would you what would you like to say about the training delivery?
I think we've got a wide aspect of people's like conditions and why they live under Phoenix, like for their support and that.
Yeah, we understand why. I think we understand why they're needing the support, don't we? And the result of it has been that we are actually implementing some changes that are very necessary. Hospital passports need to be reviewed. It's been highlighted that there are, well, Bex, indeed, you had an experience, didn't you, of being discharged
from the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning without any shoes or socks and just in my pyjamas in the soaking wet.
And this situation, of course, we now are determined to prevent happening again to any one of the people who are using our service at Phoenix. And we've put together with everybody, haven't we, ideas, and we're going to put it into practice of how to prevent this happening, not by bothering to waste any time by saying, oh, well, the hospital's duty of care was to do this, ours was to do that, somebody else's was to do this. There's no point in asserting any sort of blame. We just need to sit down and work out how we as a company can put prevention in place. And we've come up with quite a few different ideas, which we're going to put into the hospital passport, so that the main problem seems to be admission, is the discharge rather from A&E on an emergency admission. So and from that, putting actually a plan into how someone can safely leave hospital. We've actually now developed on from somebody else's fantastic ideas about how within this hospital passport it goes beyond those realms, and we're now going to be putting some sort of plans in place so that we can manage health at home and have a guidance on how we can not only help people if they need to come out of hospital, but how we can really work hard to prevent them going in the first place. And again, from these listening to people's experiences, you can go back and back and back until you say, well, actually, this experience wouldn't have happened had we been able to prevent, as far as possible, that person even needing to go into hospital in the first place. So that's, and the other thing actually, is really that we are wanting to work on enabling people's choice by, which we hope to promote when we run our cafe, by trying to get across to maybe the medics, again, be they psychiatric or be they GPs, that more information is needed to be given when people attend appointments. So rather than, because sometimes people don't actually really understand the diagnosis that they're being given, which is then followed by a form of treatment, which again is just taken on board because people accept the orthodox opinion without it being questioned. Well, maybe going back to the cause, what's caused you come to the doctor in the first place? So looking a bit deeper than treating the symptom, but more trying to find the cause of what's why someone has had to go for advice in the first place. And then also being offered the information so that they can make a really considered choice about how they want to deal with the problem, not maybe just a prescriptive one. So as I said, that's quite detailed, I know, but from it, so much detail has arisen.
It has a hell of a lot.
And thank you both for sharing those details with us, Mary and Bex. It's been really good to hear about the training that you've delivered, and it's just fantastic that that's been able to continue, and also the improvements that you've been able to make, and also a little bit about your plans for what happens next. So thank you for sharing that. And now we're going to move on to 4 short video clips. We're going to view them back to back, and then we're going to move on to our open forum discussion where we can talk about the video clips and people's experience of living with COVID-19, but how you've worked to make sure that they do have some choices. So John is just configuring that on the screen for us now. You might hear a little bit of background noise in one or two of the videos, but please just bear with that. These were shot in people's homes and, you know, where they normally are during the day. We're going to start with Danny.
Good morning, Danny. How are you today?
Anything.
Good. Are you happy that we are now coming out of lockdown? Yes. What difference has it made to you coming out of lockdown? Could you tell me what's going to happen today, this afternoon?
Coming to something.
Your mum and dad are coming.
Yeah,
Are you looking forward to that? And they haven't been able to visit for a while then, so that's good news today. And I understand that you've been able to return to work.
Yeah.
Are you happy to return to work, Danny? Yes?
The other three hadn't.
The other three, which three are they, Danny?
One in week 3, 2 in Gamey Hills,
And are they your charity shops, Danny?
I haven't gone back yet.
No, and you volunteer there, don't you?
Yes.
And the job you have returned to then, where's that?
Aylesford.
And how do you get to Aylesford? So you travel by...
I had to put a mask on the bus there and back.
So that's new for you, isn't it? It's a different way of travelling. And how about at work? Is there a different setup at work? Or is it just the same?
2 different social distance.
So you're social distancing. But although it's different, are you happy to be back to some sort of normality?
Soon, very soon.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Danny, thanks ever so much. And I wish you all the very best with the charity shop that's opening soon. Good morning.
Hello, Neil.
Hello.
How have you been feeling during COVID?
I'm a bit bored.
Have you?
Yeah, a bit bored.
And is that because your routine's different?
Yeah, a bit bored, a bit bored.
And in what way has your routine been different?
I'm a bit crying, that's it. I'm a bit sad.
You're sad.
Yeah.
Do you normally go out to clubs?
Yeah, I miss all the clubs, I miss all that lot, I miss it all.
And
I miss the swimming as well, I miss all the clubs, I miss the swimming.
have you been able to do other things in support?
Do shopping.
Good.
I went to the Monday shopping I wanted, and Friday do the ironing I wanted to do.
So have you had company in your support time then?
Yeah, a couple of weeks back.
No.
I did. Sometime back.
And what about work, Neil? Do you normally work?
Long time ago now.
Will you be able to get back to work by truck? Don't know yet.
No, sure.
No. And are you hoping you will be able to go back to work?
I know, yeah.
But
Sure.
would you like to, Neil?
I might be, not sure. Not sure.
What are you most looking forward to once all these restrictions are lifted?
I miss all swimming, I miss.
So you're looking forward to going swimming again?
And yeah, I do. Miss the gym. And miss. And the library. I mean, someone see more, not cats, I see my mum. I've went out there.
So you've got lots to look forward to.
And the kids go chocolate bar. Well, and as pictures and cinema mix as well. And my dad. Well.
So you've got lots to look forward to going back to that.
Yeah, bingo, I miss bingo. I miss well, all that lot.
So you do lots of things, and do you usually do all that in support, Neil?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Good. Well, I hope you can get to it very soon. Thank you, Neil, very much. Thanks. Hello.
My name is Christine. I live alone. I lost my husband recently in May, and I do everything for myself more or less. My helpers come, and they're very good folk to me, and I just got a house of memories.
Oh, how have you felt during this
And,
COVID outbreak?
I felt isolated, no one about, but I carried on, and just as it was normal.
And losing your husband during COVID, that must have been very difficult for you, Christine. Was he in hospital or was he at home?
No, he died at the hospice.
Were you able to see him?
Yes, I stayed with him all day,
Oh,
right to the end.
and you must have found that great comfort.
I think this is why I'm coping quite well. I think if I hadn't have been with him, it might have been different. But
Yeah.
I've coped quite well.
And
Got on with life.
except the life you've been getting on with must be a bit different now. Had you previously been quite active going out to any clubs or anything like that?
Yes, I'm a very active person. I like my clubs. I like being with people.
And have you been able to go to your clubs?
No, not yet. It's been shut down.
And how have you felt about that?
Bit sad, really. Being on my own, no one to talk to. But my neighbours are ever so good. They always hang over the fence and call me. Yeah. Very good.
And have you got things to look forward to soon?
Yes. My son's coming down in July, the 24th for a long weekend.
Oh,
And hopefully I will go back on holiday with him.
that would be splendid. And what about your social? Will that be able to start up again?
Yes.
And what will you be doing when you can get out again?
My neighbour's going to take me into town and we'll have coffee and walk around the shops. Yeah.
And any clubs will they be reopening, Christine?
Yeah, potentially my club at Linton will be opening. And I go to the Evergreens at West Farley and they'll soon be opening.
And how are you feeling about your future?
I'm looking forward to my future now.
Great. Christine, thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is
Sisters. Hiya, Paul. Is it if I call you Paul?
Yep.
Yeah. Paul, can you tell me how the past few months living with COVID-19 has affected you? Felt any different?
Lonely.
Lonely?
And more depressed because I haven't been able to go out.
Uh-huh. So moving forward, now these restrictions have been lifted, what are you most looking forward to?
Going out, meeting up with friends and family.
And have you been able to have any contact with friends and family during this time?
Ringing them up.
So you've been glad of that communication?
Yeah.
Has it affected you at all with your support that you receive?
I wasn't able to have the support worker I had before.
Uh-huh. And why was that? Do you know? Was it because of mixing with too many people and transferring the disease? That must have had a big impact on you.
At the start, it did, yeah.
And how are you feeling now?
Yeah, good.
What about other services and help you receive? Have you had an impact from the pandemic on those services? Do you use doctors or other health visitors?
Primary care nurse, she's been ringing me up weekly to see that I'm okay.
And normally, how would you have your communication with the primary care nurse?
I would normally go and see her at my GP.
And has that change affected you at all? How have you coped with that?
A little bit, so I'm not very good at talking on the phone.
And you haven't been able to see her face to face?
No.
Will you be able to start seeing her again soon?
Hopefully, yep.
So you've had to adjust to a different way of communicating with your primary health carer.
Yep.
And has anybody else been in contact with you to see how you are?
My counsellor has been in contact by phone a couple of times.
And has that been of a help to you?
Not really, because I need to see her.
Does she know that you needed to see her? And did you ask her at all if that would be possible?
Yes.
And what did she say to you?
No, not at the moment.
Did she explain to you why?
Yeah, because of what's going on.
And you understood that? You accepted that, okay?
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of. What was it that was difficult for you to accept? Did you feel she should have?
Angry about what's going on.
Yeah.
And that I can't do stuff that I normally do.
And do you feel that maybe a greater facility should have been made to enable you to continue with your face-to-face counselling?
Yeah.
And what about visiting your GP? Do you need to do that regularly or?
No.
What about going shopping? Have you been able to go out and get what you need?
Yeah, with support.
And going forward then, Paul, are you comfortable with the future ahead?
Yep.
Good. Right, well, let's hope everything goes well from now on for you. And thank you very much, Paul. This is it.
Okay, it's now time to open up for the open forum discussion. So if you'd like to take your microphones off mute and use the hand raised function if you want to ask a question. And I would encourage you to ask questions to Mary and Bex, anything that you'd like to know more about from the videos that we've just seen, and also the training. And also, a couple of you have mentioned technology in the chat stream. So if you want to raise queries and questions about technology from earlier, please do so. Over to you for the next 10 minutes. Do we have anyone who'd like to ask a question or make a comment from what you've seen? Okay, Robert.
Yeah, I just think that this was such an amazing opportunity to see how people were really talking to people and understanding what their issues were. There wasn't a lot about technology really in this, but it does show how if you're really interested and you really want to ask what matters to the person, that we can get real responses out of this. And I think that they were fantastic. And I thought that the initial interview with with Mary and Bex was also the same. It just shows that it's a different way of looking at things rather than always just trying to diagnose what is the matter with you. You get a real richness of response. It's obviously difficult with these COVID times and social distancing. So I think that the interviewers have done really well to be able to get the messages out. But I just think it was a really, really rich experience. So I just wanted to say thank you. And also thank you for taking on board this philosophy that we should always try and remember to ask people what matters to them. And that was what we got out. Even if people had some difficulty with some of those responses, I think it was really, really valuable for them to be able to give their own answers to this.
Yeah, well, we've learned so much too, Robert. And whilst we always think we are practicing in the best way possible, I think one thing that Esther has certainly taught me and Bex brings out in me every day is the fact that we can always make things better.
We can if we try to get there.
Yes, we can always make things better.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any other questions or comments?
So the only thing I will say is that as I'm now the new senior lecturer in innovation in healthcare at the new medical school, it's opening in Canterbury in the next few weeks. We will be using ESTHER as the example of person-centered care, and I will refer to this webinar about how we're trying to maintain that communication and network. So
that's great. Good. We're pleased to hear that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
We've got a comment from Laura in the chat as well. She's asked, can we take a person-centered approach to introducing technology when there is resistance from the individual to engage with it, for example, using video calling during lockdown?
Sorry, so what, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. So can we take a person-centered approach to introducing technology when there is resistance from the individual to engage with it? For example, using video calling during lockdown.
Well, I think probably first and foremost to explain exactly how the technology is working and who it is going out to, because I think a lot of the reason people have resistance is out of fear. Maybe they don't understand something properly, and also maybe to also ask that person what it is they don't like about the use of the technology, so that it could be something that could be addressed, so that then once you've removed whatever it is, the particular problem, then it's not always just one, you know, the whole thing, is it? It's often just one small factor of it that somebody is resistant to. So I think maybe understanding why they don't want to use the technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great, thank you. Laura, do you have anything else to comment back on that? No? Great,
so
thank you very much. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a comment. One is that I can't really see the chat lines very easily. It's quite difficult to see on my screen for some reason. But I wanted to just go back on what we were just talking about, and that is people's reluctance to technology. So I wanted to give you an example of my father who recently died, but he was a GP like me, and he was very against using this technology and thought it was getting in the way. But because of COVID, he managed to get a consultation with his GP that was really successful. And so although he was fighting this technology, when it was necessary and he had to use it, he actually they were very good at making it work for him, to be fair. But then he got really the right response. He got an immediate response from his GP. He was able to get his end of life sorted out so that he wasn't taken into hospital when it wasn't his wish. And in the end, he was also able to be issued, and I know this sounds a bit morbid, but he was able to be issued with a death certificate, which otherwise he would have ended up having to go to the coroner's court, and it would have taken 6 weeks to have sorted out all of the situation, whereas it was all completed within 2 days after he died. So this was a very successful use of technology, which he was initially worried about because he thought he might not understand it, or more particularly, he might lose the personal contact. But because it was done in the right way, and because it was the way that mattered to him, he was actually very, very happy about using that technology. So it was a great success.
Thank you for sharing that, Robert. Do we have any other hands raised? If not, I'd like to ask Mary and Bex just to perhaps reflect on what did it mean for Danny, Neil, Christine and Paul to make those videos and be part of what we're doing this morning?
I think it means a lot because like they're losing out on things they used to do, like me. I used to, well, I'm going back hopefully next week to Phoenix Support, and I've been missing all those weeks.
Work, isn't it? That you
of
do?
Work, and it's like going out, doing your routines in life. It's like thrown up in the air, kind of like.
Also, I think it's made a reality for Neil and Danny, particularly, and also Paul, because they are ESTHER ambassadors now, and that was an opportunity for them to speak out as ambassadors on behalf of other people as well as themselves. So yes, and it's been, actually ESTHER is something that during support I've been discussing. I've been asking people if they can help me with the delivery and explaining. I think everyone wants to make improvements, so they're kind of projects that have helped people have something to work for. People say Danny is so used to going to work, he spends one day working at Tuck by Truck, 3 days doing voluntary work at charity shops. So he's actually, during support, he has come up with a few really good ideas. And again, it's just, we all need sort of some purposeful activity, don't we?
We do.
And it's certainly helped provide a lot of that, I think. And making the videos is great to be, it's just being heard.
It is. I think it's a great idea, but like it's coming to reality with that there is a serious health risk as well. So if you like go out and not understand what's out there, this condition, what it could do.
Thank you. I think we have a hand raised. Is that Nicolene?
Yes, that's right. I'm Nicolene from Sweden, and I really get warm in my heart when I hear you and when I see the videos. So I'm so proud of you in England. So it's so beautiful to listen to you and to listen to the stories. And what I was thinking, the question, what matters to ESTHER, is very important, but sometimes we have to reframe that question.
Yes.
And I think you did that very beautifully, because you said, what will help you to improve your life? So I think if we can help each other to get other questions, so that we can help people think about it, what matters really to them. And sometimes the question, what matters to you, it's sometimes too big, so we have to reframe it. So I like that part. And I'm on holiday, but I thought this was so important to be here. So, and I'm so happy. This is giving me a lot of energy. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
And something to Robert. Robert, when you start your course at the university or whatever it was, you know where to find me, because I think we could also have maybe a small live event. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicolene. Thank you for giving up the time and for your endorsement from Sweden. Okay, we are due to close the webinar in about 4 minutes, but we do have time for 1 or 2 final questions or comments. Does anyone want to say anything at this point?
I think what Nicolene just said is very, very important, because that's something that Bex and I have also found, that why we want the support plans and the way they're presented to be changed, because it's the way in which the questions are presented that really, I think, restrict the answers that are being sought, because we need to ask sometimes, explain why we're asking that question. What's the point of it? And indeed, I know Robert and I have talked in the past about the importance of encouraging people to make preferred choices toward which will enable them to achieve what they want at the end of their lives. And obviously, Robert, this is something you have experienced very recently with your father. And in order to do that, we need to not terrify somebody by saying, have you got an end of life plan? Which I think makes me shudder to the core. And what would you answer to that? But we need to definitely present everything in a way which enables an answer, because I think and that's what we are going to be working with all the people who we are providing these plans for, and asking them, how is the best way to present things for you? And we're going to work on what is the best way to present something so that we can get the information to help that person in the best way.
I find some of the questions very patronising.
Okay, it sounds to me like we might have another subject area for a future ESTHER webinar.
Yes.
So let's note that down, because I think that's very powerful what you've both just said, particularly what you just said, Bex. That's very powerful.
Yes, and I wouldn't use that word lightly neither.
No.
I do think it is.
Okay, so let's pick that subject up after the webinar, and thank you for sharing that. Before we move on to close, Emily, is there anything else we need to focus on from the chat stream? Are there any final sort of comments or questions that we just need to reflect on?
Robert had a question. Can we learn more how Phoenix have managed to make the ESTHER philosophy become core to their work?
Absolutely. I think we ought to spend some time looking at that, and it's been a great opportunity to work in co-production with you, Mary and Bex, and hopefully we will have the opportunity to do that again soon. In fact, we have got some plans, haven't we,
yes.
in terms of an ESTHER cafe or a virtual ESTHER cafe.
Yep. And
we think there's some videos that we can make as well to bring some subjects and topics alive via videos. So more on those plans. Can
I just cut very quickly just to say, on a positive note, that's another way COVID will enable us to include more and more of the people we're here to help in the cafes through this form of communication, because for a lot of people it's less daunting than a room full of people.
It is.
So there are lots of positives to come from what we've learning through COVID. Great. I find more positives than negatives ultimately.
Great. Okay. Right, if we could move on, John, so that we can close the webinar. So first of all, just to say a very big thank you to everybody that has joined us this morning, and obviously big thanks to Mary and Bex. And if you can pass on our thanks to Danny, Neil, Christine and Paul, because we couldn't have done it without them this morning. They were the stars of this particular webinar.
Definitely.
So I think what we can take away is that enabling choice is one of the most important things that we can do with ESTHER. And COVID-19 does not change this, although we have to recognise that the options available might be different. So we have to be creative. Just a reminder that the ESTHER team is here to support the ESTHER network. So that's all of you guys out there. And what matters to ESTHER, recognising that we are all doing things differently this year. Thank you again for participating in the webinar. We will send you a short evaluation and feedback survey shortly. Next slide, please. So just to confirm what we're going to do next, we are going to continue with the webinars, exploring the themes of what matters to ESTHER during this time, how we keep ESTHER at the heart of everything we do, and how the ESTHER team can support what matters to you and ESTHER going forward, I'd like to invite you to our next webinar, which will take place on Wednesday the 9th of September at 11 AM. And this is ESTHER working with the Empower Care project, where we will be discussing how we tackle social isolation. To find out more or to become an ESTHER ambassador, please see our links on our last slide. Thank you all very much for participating this morning, and goodbye.